particular friend. Hello.
Yeah, I was disappointed because I thought it was a tender moment as well. And yeah, it was a shame. It was such a nice experience for such a brief time.
Hi.
Hi.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. I find your whole experience, I just want to know more. But before we go into that, and Jack was cast as Hector Dalrymple for season 3. Hector Dalrymple is, for book fans, that's Lord John Grey's particular friend. And I want to go into that. But first, I want you to tell me about you.
Oh, where to begin? Well, I mean, basically, I grew up just outside of London in England, in a town called Tunbridge. I went to a very academic school, but there was a really good bit of drama work going on there. And when I was getting towards the end of school, I had a meeting with a careers advisor who would generally suggest go apply to the top universities. But she accidentally told me about drama schools, and it was like she'd let it slip, and I was like, wait, what are you talking about? And she was like, oh no, don't, because she was like, you don't want to become an actor. But I just couldn't believe there were these places where I could go and act all the time. So I applied to a couple of quite random ones. I didn't know anything about them. Got into a couple. I chose to go to Bristol Old Vic Theatre School, I had a great 3 years there, and then moved to London at the end of that. I had got an agent and was really lucky and landed my first professional job, which was playing the lead role of Albert in Warhorse in the West End, which was sort of mind-blowingly fun and really hard work. We did it was for a year, and we did 300 shows, but it was a great summer. That was 2012, so it was when London had the Olympics as well, so it was just the country was in a really good place at that time. And then since then I've made a career in theatre and film and TV and radio stuff, all in the UK, and occasionally these lovely big TV jobs come along, like Outlander, and you're suddenly being flown everywhere and being driven everywhere and in incredible hotels, and you just glide through, and it's just so nice. And that was really what the Outlander experience was. Yeah, I mean, obviously the last year has been difficult for everyone, but obviously on a professional level it's also been very difficult for the industry, because in particular the theatre industry, which is where I do a lot of my work. But there seems to now be the green shoots of return. So just holding on nerve.
You seem to be a very evocative actor. Looking at all your work in the comments and things, which makes the irony of your experience with Outlander even greater, which I find really fascinating. So let's talk about that. And let's start with your casting story. How did you find out about the part? What attracted you to it? Why did you want to do it?
So I knew of Outlander. I knew of the books and I knew of the show, and I knew that it was a huge deal for Amazon. Mm-hmm. And so when the audition came up, I was like, yes, obviously.
So did your agent say, hey, Jack, there's this role? And yeah. And what information did you guys have about the part at that point?
Very little. I was able to do some research. I mean, I had the name of the character, so I was able to do some research and found the wiki page for Hector and worked out and saw the plot, and I was like, oh, okay, cool. This is a character that really speaks to me. Mm-hmm. And then just literally just a couple of pages of the scene, which was, I mean, I just died in it. So it was I just had to go to the casting director's office and just die several times in front of camera, which was mad. You're like, it's like the one thing you do in your day. You cross London, you go to this office, they're like, hi, do you want to come in? Stick the camera on you, and you're just like, do the scene, but just die several times and cry a bit. And then they go, okay, thanks very much. And then you leave and you're back on the street and you're like, cool, that was weird. Like weeks later, it's really, really vindicating and really pleasant when you get the call saying, yeah, they want you to do it. Turns out I can die really well on screen.
Did you do your audition with Suzanne?
Yeah, I did. Yeah,
Okay.
someone I'd auditioned for several times before across my career, and to greater or lesser degrees of success. And it's I mean, and then but with these huge shows like Outlander, you kind of do feel like it's a bit of a lottery, because you just know that like there's so many young male white actors in London. It's not like there's it could have been anyone. So so when you do get those things, you do feel particularly lucky.
So did you know Oscar Kennedy at all before you did this?
No.
Yeah. Okay. So
That's
that
it.
was probably a little bit surreal also, right? Once you got the role, how did you prepare for it? Did you watch the seasons 1 and 2? Did you read any of the books? What did you?
I watched the whole first season, yeah, and it was quite a quick turnaround in the end. So I was like, I could only get through the first season before I had to fly up because I was in London and it obviously films outside Glasgow, so it flew me up for a costume fitting, which seemed crazy, but and that was when I got an impression of the scale of the production. I just had no idea. It was like drive you out to this industrial estate outside of Glasgow, and like warehouse after warehouse of like making rooms, like costumiers, wig makers, huge sets behind these huge rolling doors. I was just like, whoa, okay, this is cool. And just I sat in the production office for a bit, and it was also nice. I mean, everyone was just so nice. I think, on those like really well paid, fun jobs, I think everyone, I mean, they're very stressful, obviously. There's like the big scale, so there's a lot of pressure. But I think when a show is a surefire hit, like Outlander really was then and still is, it's like I think it was a good vibe around.
You flew in for your costume fitting, went back to London. Did they do any makeup when they did your costume fitting? Did they sort out because you had some mortal wounds
Yeah,
there?
I think we talked about what they might be, and we looked at loads of pictures. They had lots of really good resources for the costume and what the red coats would look like, and how what kind of injuries you could sustain on that kind of battlefield. And I think we decided that a sort of cannon explosion would be quite a grisly and tragic way to go, really. So I think that's sort of what we went for.
Yeah, which is better than what happened in the book for you, because Hector is hacked to bits with a broadsword.
Yeah,
So,
I mean that wouldn't have been nice, would it? And so then I think a couple of weeks later, I flew up for the filming, and just had to kind of meet everyone. It's really weird and kind of difficult when you're dropped in to a big production like that. Everyone in the crew and the regular cast have been working together for, well, in this case, some of them years. So they have a rapport and a kind of way of working, and sometimes it can feel very nerve-wracking. So, being like, right, this is it, off you go, get it right. But this was this was amazing, because the Battle of Culloden, everything was just set up. It was huge, and it was a beautiful location, beautiful day, and just the whole machine was just so impressive. I just had the most fun. But yeah, then I had to get bloodied up and die repeatedly in a field.
I know they shot season 3 out of order.
Yeah.
What block were you in? Do you remember?
I have a feeling, I, I have a feeling it was block 3, but no, don't quote me on that.
What did you think when you went in for the read through?
Yeah, I mean, it was enormous, and obviously I recognized all the big names, and I was, yeah, again, like that feeling of like, oh, you all know each other. It's like being a new kid in school. But everyone's so nice. There's always a really nice runner or like third assistant director or someone who's there who's like, hey, I'll be your friend. And always like the hair and makeup department, that's where it's at. They're so friendly, and that's where you hear all the gossip, and it's just really exciting. Yeah, no, it's a really nice atmosphere, even though it was a really quick experience. Yeah, but we had to move fast as well to get the shots.
Was that the only scene? I
Yeah,
saw the scene with where you die and Hal drags Lord John off, and
yeah,
that's the only scene you did.
literally, yeah.
And then was it one day of filming?
One day, yeah.
Wow.
So whirlwind, really. It can't get much quicker.
Was that your first major TV role? I know you did another one.
So TV wise, I did like a similar, no, like a slightly bigger part in like this ITV drama called Lewis, which was around at the same time as I did my first theatre job, Warhorse. So that was maybe 2 days of filming. So that was, again, just drop in, huge production, again, not on the scale of Outlander, but it is a flagship ITV production.
So you graduated in 2012 from drama school, more or less?
I graduated sort of end of 2011.
Okay. And then you got your first role, which was a lead role in the West End of London. Does that even happen? Like, really?
It's quite rare, and it was like I remember getting the call so distinctly, because it was like one of those really awful, cheesy pop idol, like X Factor kind of moments where you get through, and I literally fell to my knees because I was like, this can't be happening. This is crazy. It was a question of timing, really, because that part came up just as I was graduating. So
I'm sure
yeah.
other people auditioned. And what a cool, my understanding, it was like a giant puppet or several puppets that were horses, but I saw that you actually went to riding practice to learn, like, how.
So the puppets in the show are life-size horse puppets. In fact, they're a bit bigger than life-size because they've got to fit puppeteers inside them, and they have all the right joints and all they're for anyone who's not seen them, they're sort of wicker cage puppets. They're in a Japanese puppetry style called bunraku, and they're made by a South African puppet company called Handspring. And so you have a puppeteer on the head controlling the head and the expressions and the breathing, and then you have someone standing in the heart, so they're kind of controlling the front legs. Then you have someone standing in the hind, they're controlling the rear legs and the tail, and they work together to bring these horses to life. And that's one thing that's like hard enough.
Good boy, Joe. So the head puppeteer here, technically, what the head puppeteer is doing is holding the head at height, and they're maintaining the eye line of the horse. We're so sensitive to eye line, animals, humans, we do it all the time. So where Joey is looking is really important. Now we know about horses that they think of humans with these forward-facing eyes as predators. So if I be unhorsemanlike and approach Joey face on, Joey might not like that very much. You can see by the ears. Can you see how the ears pin back? This is the emotional indicator.
Is Warhorse still playing anywhere?
I don't think it's playing anywhere anymore, actually. Yeah, it did a really long run internationally, but I think now it's hung up its hooves. I don't know. I did a more extensive TV job a couple of years ago that was called Traitors. It was on Channel 4, and I think it was in America. It was like a spy, like Cold War spy drama with Michael Stuhlbarg in it. Yeah, who was a legend. And yeah, so there's been bits and pieces, but totally Outlander was like another level of production.
How did you find out that your one scene was omitted from the show?
I can't remember. I think what happened was my agent communicated a message from Outlander production, a very apologetic message. It was really sweet, and I guess like I tried not to tell too many people that I was in it, because this kind of thing does happen a lot. You, especially when you're in for a day or a couple of days, you are really like vulnerable to ending up on the cutting room floor. So, and if you're, you know, Sam, you doesn't matter how much they cut from you, you're going to be in it all the time anyway, right? So, so I was kind of conscious that it would happen, but yeah. So they sent a lovely email saying, "Really sorry that the scenes had to go, but we just didn't feel like we could find a place for it among the whole story." Which I totally understand. It is a balancing act, and you know, you have a script, you shoot what is written on the script, and when you get it to the edit suite, you have something completely different. Yeah. And you have to then make a new thing. The script kind of becomes irrelevant, so you can't just like honor the script for the sake of it.
Were you disappointed?
Yeah, I was disappointed, because I was disappointed that it wasn't like, because I thought it was a tender moment as well, and yeah, it was a shame. It was just a shame of all that effort, you know.
You're so talented. It makes me wonder, like, are you now ineligible for any other role on that show? You know,
I don't know. I mean, if I didn't feature in it, then yeah, I don't know.
Well, you did go out on the DVDs and Blu-rays and the deleted scenes, but I don't know. It seems, personally, selfishly, it seems like a waste. But
I agree.
But on the other hand, you know, there is talk of a spinoff. There are 3 Lord John Grey novels and 5 novellas. So they haven't said what the spinoff is, but it's probably that.
Yeah.
And Hector, you know, Hector seems like a small role, but actually Hector is Lord John Grey's Claire, basically. Yeah. You know, and his influence is there throughout. And I think Lord John Grey's relationship with him is the reason that Lord John Grey and Jamie bond in the first place, because he can understand, they bond over their loss.
Right, yeah.
In the prison. And then, you know, Hector comes up in dreams, you know, even in the book that they're filming now, that season 6, this is a spoiler. Lord John Grey gives Jamie the sapphire ring that Hector gave him, and it's known that that ring was from Hector. I don't think they'll portray that in the show, because we didn't get Hector. We don't know who. We know he had a particular friend, but we don't know anything else. So, but if you've got a whole series dedicated to Lord John Grey, Hector is a very big piece of that. Yeah. So what do you think? Do you think you'll be reprised as Hector, or they'll recast and you'll go into or you could get another bigger, I mean, I don't know. What do you think?
I mean, I'd love to return as Hector, or, you know, I'd just love to. It was such a nice experience for such a brief time that I'd love to do that. And I would love to stay with the production for a long time, rather than, you know, visiting for a few days here and there. Yeah, I think I desperately wanted that early on in my career, and I've mostly sort of worked in theatre, and I love theatre to bits. That's how I, that was my first love.
Yeah.
But I think I'd be better at it now. I think I'd be better at screen work now. I think I've calmed down quite a lot, and I've gained confidence, and I think I've gained a bit of taste. So I think as much as you want something when you're young, you're not necessarily ready for it. So I think, yeah, I mean, if Suzanne's watching, yeah, for sure.
And also, you seem like an actor's actor. You seem like you really like the craft and those kind of gritty challenges.
Yeah, I think, a genuine ambition of mine is to be known as an actor's actor, because I think that's, I really am passionate about the craft. I write, I produce plays and films. I'm yet to direct, but that's something else I want to do. I just like have a compulsion to just make theatre and film.
What did you think about the reality of that scene of young Lord John Grey actually kissing you as a period piece? Because, he pretty much would be killed if he was discovered that he was a homosexual. In the book, he doesn't do that. He just looks at him, and then he's haunted by him for the rest of his life, by that memory.
It's interesting. Yeah, I mean, obviously, historically, very risky thing to do. But I guess in the heat of the battle, when there's so much chaos going on, it is a very chaste kiss. It's a very, it's a very gentle, tender moment. I think in that context, he can get away with it. That would be a really interesting question for the spin-off, if that happened, is that it's really hard to know, actually, in a nuanced way, what people's attitudes would have been towards being gay. I mean, even the term being gay wasn't like in usage then. So because it's difficult to know, because none of this is ever recorded. The queer history is sort of expunged from the history books. So there would be some really interesting work to do there, I think, to make it authentic and explore what people's reactions, responses to that would be. But we know that people have been in same-sex relationships since the beginning of time. So it's fully plausible. The legality of it has always been interesting, because it's never been about that, really. It's always been to do with the church and to do with some other political reason. So the Buggery Act of 1533 that Henry VIII signed into law, Thomas Cromwell signed it into law, backed by Henry VIII, was actually an attack on the monasteries. It was all part of the dissolution of the monasteries, and that law stuck. That was never changed, and was only recently, in relative terms, undone. And that was the law under which Alan Turing was charged. So it's yeah.
When you say recent, like what? When was it undone? Do you know?
The Buggery Act, which was the law under which people were charged with sodomy and men specifically, because there was never any law made about female love, because the powers that be just never acknowledged that existed. So the Buggery Act 1533 was when homosexuality was made legal in 64. That was when that was undone, 1964. So yeah.
I've read that you first wanted to be a stuntman.
That's true. Yeah, that was my dream. And there was this like summer holiday club being run in the UK when I think I was about probably 12 years old, run by this big time stunt director. I think he was called Greg Powell, and he was running this residential week long summer school where you could go learn to be a stuntman. But then not enough people signed up, so it had to be cancelled. So, missed my calling.
That's so interesting. So that just, we started this talking about timing.
Yeah.
I think you were canceled as Hector because there's something better out there coming.
I like that thinking.
Yeah, and maybe it has to do with Outlander. That would be great.
That'd be
Maybe
very
it's
cool.
a spinoff.
So how many seasons has Outlander got left in it?
So season 6 is being filmed right now.
Yeah.
They've re-upped for season 7. There will be 10 novels total. She's just announced the publication date for number 9.
Right, okay.
So they're filming 6, 7 is coming. They have 8. They can do 9, and then by the time they get there, she'll probably have 10 done. So I wouldn't see any reason for Starz not to do it. The only issue I see is retaining the 2 leads and or successfully recasting them. Your play Cruise, which is being live streamed, and then you're doing at the Duchess starting in May.
Well, I start rehearsals on Monday, and we're at the Duchess Theatre in the West End from the 18th of May to the 13th of June. So yeah, that feels kind of unbelievable at the moment, but
Cruise has a really interesting premise. Do you want to talk about that?
So it's a show that I wrote and I'm performing. As you say, it's streaming and will also be a live show. It's based on a true story I heard when I was volunteering for Switchboard, which is an LGBT plus helpline in this country. Anyone, anywhere can call for impartial, non-judgmental listening. And it was a story of a guy who moved to London in the beginning of the 80s, and he discovered himself, discovered Soho, discovered his sexuality, discovered the gay scene, and then in the mid-80s was diagnosed with HIV. And he and his partner, who was also diagnosed, were given 4 years to live maximum. And so they decided to sell the flat, sell the car, spend all their money, party their way through their final days. And then by a stroke of luck, this guy was fine and survived until effective medication came along, and then, lived on to a ripe old age, which was very rare for the time. So he got lucky, so he was given his life back, but he'd lost so many friends, he'd spent all his money. So it was a very bittersweet kind of story. And it was a story that stuck with me for years, and it was one that I heard several times since, with different characters, different endings, different events. And it was a story that kept coming back to me, and I just knew that I wanted to tell it somehow. So last year, during the first lockdown in this country, I decided to put pen to paper and actually get it written. And here we are with the live show happening. And it's as well as this quite, moving story, it's also an exploration of Soho in London and the West End in the 80s, when it was a really vibrant bohemian place. And to explore that, we use musical styles from the era. It's not like a jukebox kind of musical. It's all original music that sort of travels from 1980, the end of disco, all the way through electronic music and the rise of commercial pop, through to the house music, Chicago house, Detroit house, and the rave music of the 90s. So it's written by someone I've collaborated with before called John Elliott. He's normally a folk musician. He has a band called The Little Unsaid, who are fantastic. But I also knew he had a penchant for electronic music. So I told him about this project, and he said, yes, please let me do this. He's created the most incredible music for it. And it's so of the time, but it's original and it's clever. And it really tells the story for me, to be honest. It takes a lot of weight off me. That's the show.
You want a big night? I'll give you a big night. Tonight I'm going solo on a tour of my old haunts, saying my goodbyes to friends, foes, strangers, lovers, mothers and brothers, fond farewells and good riddances, all geared towards this one night, my last night on earth. Soho, a grid of streets, 1 square mile of grotty, glorious freedom. Let's do it. Let's go out with a bang. Why not?
And did I read that you're singing in this also?
Yeah, I sing a few songs in it as well. Some of the locations the story goes to, there's someone singing. So there's a karaoke bar, or there's a drag queen in a drag bar, that kind of stuff. And I just play everyone.
Yes. Yes. Maybe you could just do the Lord John spinoff and
Oh my God, that's
yourself.
such a good idea. I could do it all.
Yeah, I think you could actually. Or you could play Jamie and Claire the older.
Oh, now there's an idea.
Do you have aspirations of playing Broadway with Cruz?
Yeah, I think the story would go down really well in New York.
Yeah.
The UK TV series It's a Sin played in America and went down really well, and similar kind of territory. So we're kind of exploring how we can bring it over, when we can bring it over, I guess.
Thank you so much for hanging out with me and answering my questions. And I really look forward to watching your career. You're an interesting one.
That's nice to hear. Thank you.